Do you believe in signs of fate? I had to go through real hell to realize that fate is constantly sending us signs. Unfortunately, it took me too long to realize that my wife was blatantly cheating on me with my friend. I was completely shocked when I found out their little secret. Lisa and I marked our third anniversary on Saturday alongside our friends George and Jane, whose third anniversary conveniently fell on the preceding weekend. I'm Jim, and George and I were freshman roommates in college. George, who was studying accounting, couldn't stop talking about a woman named Lisa in some of his accounting classes. He strategically arranged to be in project teams with her and joined the same study group. Since he hadn't had a girlfriend before and lacked dating experience, he did everything possible to spend time with her on academic tasks, except mustering the courage to ask her out. I repeatedly advised him to invite her out, but he consistently backed out whenever the opportunity arose. Listen, you're interested in this girl, just take the leap and ask her out. You interact with her daily, and she hasn't shown any signs of avoiding you when it comes to working together in class, so she probably doesn't find you too bothersome, I kept insisting. But what if I mess up? I might end up losing her as a study partner, was always his cowardly excuse. Then I had a brilliant idea for him. Think about it. She also lives in the dorms, right? So she must have a roommate too, I proposed. He hesitated. I suppose. Well, why don't you suggest inviting Lisa and her roommate to join us for dinner and drinks on Friday night? That way it's just a casual get-together with a group of people. It won't seem like a date, I suggested. For some reason, that reasoning resonated with George, and he finally mustered the courage to ask her out. To our delight, she and her roommate agreed. We had an incredible time together. Lisa's roommate, Jane, embodied the quintessential girl-next-door type, a charming allure that captivated many. Unfortunately, just as one might muster the courage to act, Jane and her family relocated. The four of us hit it off splendidly, engaging in various social activities. Over time, I found myself drawn more to Lisa while George connected with Jane. After graduation, Lisa and George secured positions at a prominent accounting firm, while Jane pursued a career as a dental hygienist, and I landed a job as an insurance claims examiner. We located an apartment building near downtown with two separate two-bedroom units a few floors apart. Lisa and Jane took one, while George and I occupied the other. However, the arrangement didn't last long. George spent so much time at Lisa and Jane's place, while Lisa practically moved in with me and George moved in with Jane, prompting us to adjust the lease accordingly. Naturally, we had shared almost every experience together. So during our trip to Jamaica with the four of us, I asked Lisa to marry me while George proposed to Jane. We decided not to have a combined wedding ceremony, but instead opted for separate weddings a weekend apart. Afterwards, we all enjoyed a joint honeymoon in Hawaii. Days were filled with shared activities, but evenings and most dinners were spent as couples. Our life aspirations aligned perfectly. We planned to work for 4 or 5 years to save for a house, followed by starting a family a few years later. Everything was going smoothly until Wednesday morning after our anniversary dinner. Thanks to COVID, George, Lisa, and I had the luxury of working from home 2 days a week. Even though our offices were just blocks away, the opportunity to sleep in an extra 30 minutes and dress casually a couple of days a week was too good to pass up. We had designated the second bedroom in our apartment as the home office. Lisa worked from home on Mondays and Tuesdays, while I worked from home on Wednesdays and Thursdays. It was a perfect arrangement, avoiding any conflicts of both of us working from home simultaneously. As Lisa had already left for work, I was tidying up our bedroom before heading to my home office. That's when I noticed something under the bed, a coin. Just an ordinary coin, except we had cleaned the bedroom on Sunday and I was certain it wasn't there Sunday night. I gazed at the coin and instantly recognized it. You see, when George was a child, his grandfather would always gift his grandchildren a silver dollar whenever they visited. George's grandfather passed away when George was in high school, and I was aware that George always kept that final silver dollar with him wherever he went. During our college years, I saw it frequently enough to memorize the year and every mark on that coin. This was George's coin. As I sat on the bed, I couldn't help but stare at it. How could George's coin have ended up beneath my bed? George and Lisa were colleagues. Lisa worked from home on Mondays and Tuesdays, while George worked from home on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It seems George might have been in mine and Lisa's bedroom on Tuesday. They live 2 floors below us. It made me uneasy. I know George and Lisa usually have lunch together when they're at the office. They typically grab lunch out on Wednesdays. So maybe he just came up for lunch yesterday and happened to be in our bedroom for some innocent reason, and the coin slipped out of his pocket and under the bed. It might be insignificant, but I needed confirmation. I checked our bedroom when I got home. Despite having a meeting first thing, I tried to push these doubts aside. I hid the coin so Lisa wouldn't come across it. I figured it was best to hold on to it for now. If it turns out to be nothing, then I'll just coincidentally stumble upon it and return it to George. During my first call, I connected with my manager, Samantha, who turned out to be quite a character. She was roughly a decade my senior, married to an auto mechanic with 3 young daughters. Samantha barely reached 5 feet in height, while her husband stood at an imposing 6'6", making for an intriguing pair. Their daughters clearly favored their dad. As our call began, Samantha, who also worked from home on Wednesdays and Thursdays like myself, insisted on having the camera on, as per company policy. Upon seeing me, she immediately sported a concerned expression. "What's the matter?" she inquired. I hesitated. Should I delve into this? Samantha had been a supportive listener ever since my mother's passing the previous year. "I'm not entirely sure," I admitted. "You see, I discovered this coin beneath my bed, and I know it belongs to my friend George. It's a coin his grandfather gave him." Across the call, Samantha fixed me with a knowing gaze. "And now you're left wondering why George was in your bedroom, aren't you?" "Indeed," I replied solemnly. "George resides 2 floors below with his wife." Interestingly, both Lisa and George work from home on Tuesdays. So, if they're up to something they shouldn't be, Tuesday presents an opportunity. But you're hesitant to confront her directly, as it might imply distrust. "Yes," I acknowledged. "The doubt lingers, but I'd rather not stir trouble if there's nothing to it." "Is there a discreet way to investigate their activities on Tuesdays?" I observed our avoidance of the term cheating. She paused. "My husband once dealt with a worker stealing car parts. Despite security cameras, the thefts occurred in a blind spot. He got a hidden battery-operated camera. Shall I inquire if he still has it?" For the first time, a smile crossed my face, hinting at a potential resolution to my doubts. That would be wonderful, I thought. It would provide me with peace of mind. If not, there's an electronics store just around the corner from the office. I could grab one when we're there on Friday. She returned the smile. "I'll inquire about it. And if it's available, I'll bring it in on Friday." "Thank you, Samantha. I'm confident this will reassure you that there's nothing to fret about." With a plan in place, we delved into our tasks. That night, I made a conscious effort to push the worry aside and acted as normally as possible around Lisa. She didn't seem to sense any difference, so we proceeded with our evening as usual. Thursday night, I wasn't feeling like myself. Despite my efforts, the issue was weighing heavily on my mind. When Lisa inquired, I simply mentioned a health claim at work was troubling me. Lisa understood that such claims often had poignant narratives behind them, which occasionally affected me. She offered to discuss it, but I declined, offering her a reassuring smile instead. On Friday, Samantha brought in the camera, which was compact and easy to conceal. She demonstrated its operation to me. The next day, I had to pay a visit to my father, providing a valid excuse to be away from Lisa for the day. He required assistance with tidying up the attic and rearranging things around the house, ensuring my absence for the entire day. I also recalled that Jane occasionally worked Saturdays at the dental clinic, so if anything suspicious was happening, Saturday would provide another opportunity for them. While Lisa was occupied in the bathroom on Friday night, I managed to install the camera in our bedroom. Using the artificial Hawaiian lei from our honeymoon that Lisa had kept hanging on the wall, I successfully concealed the camera behind it. Due to my early start on Saturday, I was able to avoid our usual Friday night intimacy. My father resided in the neighboring town, With our focus on saving money and given the proximity of everything, we didn't own a car. Thus I rose early to catch the bus to his town. Upon arrival, my father fetched me from the bus station, and we embarked on a bustling day sorting through belongings. Aware of the eventual need to downsize, he insisted on carefully assessing items long stowed away. "It's better to approach this thoughtfully than to discard things hastily due to lack of time," he would always remark. We sorted through numerous items for donation and disposed of a load at the dump. Despite the progress, there remained more to tackle, but we plan to address it gradually over the next few months. He expressed satisfaction with our efforts. During the bus ride back, my anxiety resurfaced. I fretted over the possibility of finding something incriminating on the SD card in that camera. Arriving home late, I found Lisa waiting, and we decided to order pizza for dinner. While waiting for the delivery, I took a shower to rid myself of the accumulated dust. Although I nervously surveyed the bedroom, I found no signs of anything amiss during my absence. That night, I pretended to have sore muscles and retired to bed early. I felt anxious about Sunday evening when we had plans to visit George and Jane's for dinner. Sundays were our regular dinner gathering nights, rotating hosts each week. I felt a sense of relief when Lisa mentioned she would accompany Jane for grocery shopping on Sunday morning. This afforded me some alone time to review the footage from the camera. I inserted the SD card into my computer and transferred the video files. The camera recorded whenever there was movement, capturing moments such as us going to bed on Friday night and my departure to my dad's place on Saturday morning. Jane typically begins work at 9 on Saturdays. Then came the moment I had been dreading. About 9 o'clock, Lisa got out of bed, as follows from the timestamp. Since there is no sound, I can only guess at the reason why she got up. Shortly after, George appeared in the frame next to her. They exchanged kisses and climbed into bed together. I won't go into the details of what followed, and it's not one of those stories where she did things for him that she didn't do for me. However, I was completely shocked to see my best friend and my wife having fun in our bed. Judging by the timestamps, they had lunch there since there was no activity at lunchtime, and then returned to my bedroom to do further business. And after lunch, they lay around and cuddled together. Later, I noticed them heading to the bathroom. When they reappeared in the frame, they were wrapped in towels, which suggested that they were taking a shower together. The video then depicted them removing the bedding. George must have left because the subsequent timestamp showed Lisa, a few hours later, remaking the bed with the same sheets, suggesting she must have washed them. Having experienced migraines occasionally, I decided this was the perfect time to feign one. There was no way I was going to join those two cheaters for dinner. I swiftly uploaded the incriminating video to the cloud and my personal work drive. I wanted to ensure I had backups while I figured out my next steps. Then I returned the SD card to the camera, replaced the batteries, as I still wanted to monitor Tuesday's activities. Additionally, I printed some screenshots and concealed them among the documents in my work laptop bag. I anticipated Lisa's imminent return, since the doctor had prescribed blister-packed migraine medication for me. I discreetly disposed of 2 pills down the toilet and left the empty blister pack on my bedside table, alongside a partially filled glass of water. By the time Lisa arrived, I was already in bed, wearing a blindfold I typically used during migraines to block out any light. Upon seeing the blindfold, she softly inquired if I was experiencing another migraine. I affirmed and explained there was nothing she could do, suggesting she go to dinner at George and Jane's instead. She tenderly kissed my forehead, expressing her regret, and reassured me to call her if I needed anything, before departing to assist Jane with dinner. Being familiar with my previous episodes, she knew I would likely remain incapacitated until at least the following day. Even minus the migraine, I lacked the motivation to move. My thoughts were consumed by the scenes from those videos. I recalled there was a divorce attorney in my office building, a typical slimy lawyer. He was distributing business cards one morning near the elevators, claiming that most marriages end in divorce. We didn't have children, and our savings were solely for our future home, making a 50-50 split straightforward. So the divorce aspect was uncomplicated. However, what I desired was to ensure that if my relationship with Lisa ended, George's relationship with her would end too. Eventually, I'd have to speak to Jane as well. She deserved to be informed. An idea crystallized in my mind. I needed to have a conversation with Samantha. I managed to drift off to sleep before Lisa returned home. In the morning, I reassured Lisa that my migraine had subsided, and I was fit to go to work. I planted the customary kiss on her cheek and bid her a good day at work. Upon arriving at the office, Samantha beckoned me into her office and shut the door. So, I collapsed into a chair, tears welling up. She understood the question without me having to ask. "What's your next move?" "Divorce seems inevitable. I can't place my trust in her anymore." She embraced me. "I'm truly sorry." "There's a divorce attorney in the building. We have no assets aside from bank accounts and no children, so it should be straightforward. However, I do have a favor to ask." "What do you need?" she inquired. "Well, firstly, I'll need some time today and tomorrow to speak with the lawyer, but I'm hoping you can assist with something else. I want to ensure that if I'm no longer with Lisa, George isn't either," I explained. "The time isn't a problem." "Take what you need, but what specifically do you need from me?" she asked. "You're still involved with that small theater, right?" She nodded. I was hoping one of the actresses could lend a hand. Then I outlined my plan to her. After hearing my plan, she grinned and said, "I can do you one better. I'll take care of it. I'll show up to work on Wednesday and handle it. Lisa has only caught glimpses of me a couple of times, and in the current play I'm in, I wear a blonde wig. Samantha, on the other hand, is a brunette. Just bring the coin tomorrow, and we'll be all set." Leaving the office, I made my way to the main floor to find the lawyer in the building directory. Entering the lawyer's office, I found it to be the typical messy setup with boxes of files scattered around. After speaking with the secretary, I secured an appointment slot for that afternoon. Returning to work, I waited until the appointed time. The lawyer welcomed me into his office, which was surprisingly nice compared to the rest of the premises. "So, if you're here to see me, I assume you're experiencing some marital difficulties," he remarked. "Yes, my wife is being unfaithful," I replied. "Do you have any evidence?" he inquired. "Yes," I said, producing some screenshots. "Wow. Do you know who the other person is?" "My best friend." "Damn," he exclaimed, "that's even worse. Sorry, but it's usually easier when it's someone you don't know because then you're only losing the spouse. What are you seeking in the divorce? Infidelity typically doesn't impact asset distribution in court. I just want a 50-50 split of our assets. We're renters with no children. It's just our furniture, savings for a house, and retirement funds. I don't care about the furniture. I want half of the money and to keep my retirement fund while she can keep hers," I explained. "Okay," he said, reaching for his phone and dialing a number. I heard the receptionist answer. "Jill, could you bring in a 50-50 infidelity form?" A short while later, Jill entered carrying a bundle of papers. "Apologies for the delay, but legally speaking, your situation is quite straightforward," she explained. "Take a look through these documents. They outline a divorce agreement tailored to your needs. Typically, I begin with this template and then incorporate any specific details, but it should suffice for your case. Review it thoroughly and let me know if any adjustments are needed. When would you prefer to have her served?" "Thursday at her workplace," I replied. "Got it. Accompany Jill to settle my fee and we'll kickstart the process. I just need the agreement finalized by end of day Tuesday to serve her on Thursday." "Understood. I'll go over it this afternoon and touch base with you in the morning," I assured him. Heading back to my office, Samantha wanted to go over the divorce paperwork, and we did so together. The only alteration I requested was the return of my grandmother's wedding rings. I attempted to maintain a semblance of normalcy with Lisa that evening and on Tuesday. Thankfully, she was preoccupied with work stress and not in the mood for intimacy. Unfortunately, it seemed she would be receiving attention on Tuesday, likely from George. On Tuesday, I went to the bank and established a separate account for myself. While we shared joint banking, we maintained separate credit cards. The legal paperwork was finalized with the lawyer on Tuesday, and he was prepared to serve her on Thursday. Samantha was all set for her Wednesday performance. Wednesday morning, after Lisa had departed, I checked the camera and indeed, they engaged in a quick encounter at noon. Once again, she changed the sheets, and I presume she laundered them while she was at work in the afternoon. With all the evidence I needed, I took down the camera. During Wednesday's lunch break, Samantha messaged me saying, "Mission accomplished. I'll give you a ring once I'm back at the office," and added a smiley face emoji. About 20 minutes later, my phone rang, and it was her. "How did it go?" I inquired. "Probably aced it. I even managed to record it on my phone, started before I entered the restaurant. Kept it in my pocket. Let me play it for you." The recording captured the ambient chatter of the restaurant and the distinct clicks of Samantha's heels on the floor. Then her voice came through. "George, there you are. I've been searching all over for you." Samantha had mentioned once that she played a talkative character in a play a few years back, someone who wouldn't let anyone else get a word in edgewise. I could hear George beginning to ask, "Who are you?" but he got interrupted. "Apologies, I left my phone at home so I couldn't reach out to you. Unfortunately, Thursday won't work this week as I have a meeting scheduled at our usual time. By the way, you must be Lisa. George has mentioned you to me before. You're his Tuesday companion. Isn't the concept of open marriages fascinating?" Her tone then lowered. "I should mention that one of my partners has contracted gonorrhea, so it might be wise to consult your doctor just in case. It's nothing major, just a few pills and it clears up." Then she raised her voice again. "Anyway, I have to run. Oh, George, before I forget, you left your lucky coin at my place. Here it is." Samantha then ceased the playback of the recording. I chuckled. "You nailed it. What happened afterward?" Samantha chuckled too. "I exited the restaurant, so I'm not sure what transpired inside. I took off my blonde wig and sort of lingered in the shadows, but moments later, Lisa stormed out of the restaurant. George trailed behind her. She was berating him, calling him a bastard and expressing that she never wanted to see him again. He was pleading ignorance, claiming he didn't know who that woman was. The usual excuses cheaters make when they're caught. "Wow, spot on," I remarked. Samantha inquired, "What's your plan now?" "Since you generously granted me Thursday off, I've made arrangements for a hotel room. I'd rather not be at home dealing with Lisa. She's getting served in the late afternoon, so I'll have the day to pack up my clothes and anything else important. The hotel is nearby, so I can easily move everything there and hopefully be out of the apartment before Lisa returns. I'll also transfer half of our savings to my separate account. After that, I'll take one of their pictures and go to Jane's dental office, hoping to catch her as she leaves. I'll ask her for coffee and then have a difficult conversation with her," I explained with a heavy heart. "I'm not looking forward to it, but she needs to know." "What about tonight with Lisa?" Samantha asked. "Well, I'm sure she'll be upset, but what can she really say, that she broke up with her cheating boyfriend? My guess is she'll just say it's been a rough day and avoid me." That night I aimed for a sense of normalcy. I was preparing dinner when Lisa returned home. Uncertain of what to anticipate, I was surprised by her overwhelming affection. Considering the events involving George and Samantha, I expected her to be distraught, but it seemed she had resolved to strengthen our relationship earlier that day. Curious, I inquired, "How was your day?" "Well, it's been over a week since we were intimate, and I thought we could make up for it tonight," she replied before planting a passionate kiss on my lips. Reflecting for a moment, I reasoned that if she had contracted an STD from George, I likely would have too, and since Lisa was on birth control, pregnancy wasn't a concern. So why not seize the opportunity? I remember reading a story about a man who went to bed with his wife after learning about her infidelity, considering it simply as using her as a disposable commodity. That's exactly what I did. Mission accomplished. On Thursday morning, Lisa got up to go to work. She surprised me by offering me some privacy, just in case I decided to include an STD check in my plan for the week. Before she left, she kissed me warmly and hugged me. I foresaw that her day would turn out for the worse. So I started packing up. Since I had arranged for an early check-in at the hotel, I started transporting my belongings. The hotel was booked for the weekend. I've already put some things out so my dad can pick them up, since I won't need them anytime soon. In total, my belongings fit into 2 suitcases and 5 boxes. Everything was moved to the hotel before Lisa was served, which allowed me to keep up with my plans. I received a message from my attorney informing me that Lisa had been served. I left my phone on, curious to see how desperate she would be to reach me. Initially, there were 5 consecutive phone calls, each accompanied by a plea insisting she hadn't cheated. Then came the text messages. Without a word, I responded by sending her 5 pictures extracted from the videos of her with George. No text, just the images. All communication ceased. Upon receiving the lawyer's notification about Lisa being served, I made my way 3 blocks to the dental clinic. I wanted to see Jane, as I was certain she would hasten to be with Lisa, anticipating that Lisa would call her without divulging the truth about her activities with George. I arrived just in time to see Jane leaving the building. "Jane!" I called out. "You bastard! Leave me alone!" she shouted back. Yep, Lisa had definitely gotten to her. "Before you go to Lisa, we really need to talk. Just give me 5 minutes," I pleaded. She screamed at me. "What the hell could you possibly need to say to me that I would even care about?" I confessed. She was cheating. Confused, she asked, "What?" I tried to keep my voice steady. This was going to hurt her. "She cheated," I paused, "with George." I watched as she started to fall apart. "Are you sure?" I nodded. "Yes, here, let's grab a coffee and I'll tell you everything I know." We settled into a corner of the coffee shop where I recounted my findings and shared the video I possessed, deliberately omitting the part involving Samantha for now. Instead, I presented the photos I had brought along. She declined to watch the video, bursting into tears instead. I comforted her. The consequences were significant. Lisa, eager to distance herself from George, opted not to contest the divorcee. She promptly applied for a transfer to another city to avoid working in the same office as George. By the end of the subsequent week, she had relocated out of town. With her departure, I was able to return to the apartment. Jane evicted George from her apartment, and he contested the divorce. He appeared intoxicated multiple times at their place, banging on the door and pleading to see Jane. Feeling unsafe, Jane moved in with me after I returned to my apartment. I slept on the sofa bed so she could have my bedroom. Eventually, George relented and agreed to the divorce. Lisa lodged a harassment complaint against George with their company's HR department. Following the public incident at the restaurant and the subsequent rumors regarding George's relationships, he opted to relocate and begin anew. He secured employment with another company in a different town. I wasn't particularly concerned about their motives for cheating. Their justifications held no significance for me. However, Jane did inquire about it during one of her meetings with George. The affair began a year ago. Given George's previous interest in Lisa during college, they decided to explore what they might have missed out on. Working together eliminated the need for secret communication channels like hidden phones or texts. They encountered each other at work, and on Tuesdays, they simply utilized work messaging to coordinate George's visits. They reasoned that Jane, being meticulous, might detect something if they were unfaithful at George's place. Initially, they planned to continue until they had saved up for houses and were prepared to start families. However, as expected, you can't rely on the promises of cheaters. 3 years later, Jane and I were unpacking. We each received 50% of the house savings in the divorces. And with the additional savings we had amassed over the last 3 years, we had enough for the house and the baby Jane was expecting. After our divorces were finalized, both Jane and I sought counseling, initially separately and then together, to navigate the end of our marriages. Eventually, I transitioned from sleeping on the sofa bed back to the bedroom as Jane and I developed a romantic relationship. Despite the presence of George and Lisa, we shared a significant history together. Although marriage had been a topic of discussion, the surprise of Jane's pregnancy prompted us to take the leap and tie the knot. The house we purchased is near Samantha's place. Her eldest daughter is of sufficient age, enabling us to have a babysitter. For the evenings, we choose to watch Samantha perform at her small theater. Nonetheless, we're well aware of her outstanding performance. As for Lisa and George, their whereabouts and well-being remain unknown to us, not that we've ever spared them a second thought. Frankly, we're indifferent. Our focus is solely on the promising future ahead for our family.
That's the end of the story. Write your opinion in the comments about this story. It will be interesting for us to read it. Also, do not forget to like and subscribe to our channel so as not to miss new, equally interesting and exciting stories. Good luck!